Good afternoon, everyone. And we have a very interesting topic today to talk about fifth generation technology. And we all know that this technology touches every aspect of life. Anything we are using in today's world, it's being touched by it. What we are going to discuss today is what opportunities lies with 5G technology and how can we exploit to the maximum and what are required to be done so far as the business aspect is concerned. We will not be touching so much on FRAND and SEP issues because that's most controversial, but we will definitely touch for the only with the intent that it's an integral part of any technology which we are going to discuss and also in the transactional aspect. So I have with me a great panelist, Mr. Murthy and Prashant Phillips, and I think Lakshika will be joining virtually. So welcome all of you. Uh, can I start? Okay. Yeah, thank you. So again, good afternoon, everyone. So, Mr. Murthy, it's an absolute privilege for me at least, and I'm sure for all the audience as well to have you here because of your vast knowledge on this subject. So, just for the benefit, can you please say that what role does the evolution of 5G technology play in this digital era?
Thank you so much. And once again, I repeat the same disclaimer. I'm talking for myself. These are my personal views. It may not necessarily represent the position of my organization. I'm Chitra today for this discussion. Okay. Regarding the evolution, right? For my understanding, 2G to 3G, 3G to 4G, and 4G to 5G. These are cellular technologies basically. From 2G to 3G and 3G to 4G, my understanding is they try to increase the size of the dia of the pipe and they try to increase the speed at which the data flows. Right? So 2G was this, 3G was this, 4G was this. Right? And the speed at which the data would flow, 2G would be this, 3G would be this, and 4G would be that. Right? So the evolution from 2G to 3G to 4G was focused on these two things. The amount of data that can flow and the speed at which the data can flow. But 5G is fundamentally very different from all these previous generations because if you look at 5G, 5G can be viewed as a pillar. Right? 5G can be viewed as a pillar with triangles. 5G can be viewed as a triangle. And one corner of this triangle is increasing the speed and volume. Okay? Only one corner of the triangle is increasing the speed and volume. Whereas the remaining two corners, and let us give name to this corners. Right? Corner A of the triangle, let us call it enhanced mobile broadband communication. So enhanced mobile broadband communication is 4G on steroids. Okay? Whereas the other corner, sorry, steroids is a wrong example, but still. But better than. Okay? So corner B is known as ultra reliable low latency communication, which means the latency for communication is extremely important. Ultra reliable low latency communication, there is no scope for latency at all. If you look at all these communications, there is always a round trip time because the data has to go from here, it should go to a cloud or satellite or wherever it is, and then it has to come up, which is known as the round trip time. But when it comes to ultra reliable low latency communication, this time is extremely small. And why would we need this in the first place? I'll give you an example. Let us say there is an autonomous driving vehicle on the road. Okay? There is no driver. It is fed with all the algorithms, all the technology, everything. It is driving on the road, and all of a sudden there is a person who comes in front of the car. The car cannot send this data to the cloud and get the decision made in the cloud. By that time, the person will be dead. Right? That is not acceptable at all. And one of the major objectives of autonomous driving is to bring down the road deaths caused due to accidents. So you cannot afford to have an accident when it is ADAS or self-driven car. The decision should be made very near to the car. It could be at the edge or in the car itself. Right? So, which means the latency has to be extremely less, and that is where the millimeter wave communication comes into the picture. That is the second corner of 5G. And the third corner is IoT, which enables IoT, which is machine-to-machine communication, which is in the lower part of the spectrum, less than 2 gigahertz communication, wherein there are lakhs and lakhs and lakhs of devices, small devices, in the form of sensors. These sensors could be in your fridge, these sensors can be on your glasses. So these sensors need not adhere to low latency communication. Latency is acceptable. They need to get up once in a second or once in few milliseconds, and they say, okay, this is what I sense and I am reporting. And you can go to the cloud. This is not extremely time sensitive decision that needs to be made. There would be, I heard this, in an aircraft engine, there could be lakhs and lakhs of sensors that would be implanted so that it could give you an indication of the preventive maintenance that need to be taken care of. So there are ton loads of sensors which work together, which communicate, and this can happen in machine-to-machine communication at a lower frequency. So 5G has three components in the form of a triangle. First one is enhanced mobile broadband communication, EMBB. The second corner is ultra reliable low latency communication, URLLC. And during the question hour, you need to ask them all this terminology. Right? And the third corner would be machine-to-machine communication.
So, just to simplify for the audience, we are talking about faster data speed, lower latency, and support and connectivity with the IoT. So that it is simpler for you to remember if we ask the technical question. Thank you so much. That is very well explained, Mr. Murthy. I can see Lakshika is here. Hi, Lakshika. Can you see us?
Hi, Mamta. Hello. Yes, hi. Hello, Prashant.
Perfect. So Lakshika has some mobility.
And good afternoon to everyone there in the room.
Thank you for joining because she could not be in person because of some restrictions, but I'm so glad to have you here. And coming straight away to you, my question to you is, what are the opportunities of collaboration involving 5G technology, which you see that can be, optimized by the players in the market at the moment?
Thanks, Mamta. So I got a bit of what SK was speaking before me. I think he was explaining the 5G technology, and you reiterated that the forte lies in greater transmission speeds, better connectivity, low latency, and of course network slicing. So these are the four pillars, I would say, that gives 5G an edge, and I will pick up the collaboration opportunities from these because this is what also creates the opportunity for collaborations in the 5G business ecosystem. And we've all sort of just heard, I think SK, you were talking about autonomous vehicles and connectivity. So of course that's an area for collaboration. But beyond that, there are many functional areas where there can be technology collaborations for business use cases, and these range all the way from education. Just taking an example of smart classrooms, where you could have immersive lessons, trainings with AR, VR, and so on, because of the low latency, higher speeds, and so on. You could even have holographic telepresence, if you want the teacher or the mentor or the tutor to be actually present, but in a virtual manner. That is possible. Then there are collaborative opportunities in media and entertainment space, which are immense on their own and infinite, if I can say so. We all know how immersive that space has become. And all of that is an opportunity for 5G because of its lower latency, because of its higher speeds, because of network slicing, because it doesn't chew up the core network bandwidth that much then, and you're able to perform those activities much faster, almost real time. So that's a huge, huge opportunity that comes. Of course, gaming cannot be left behind when we're talking about media and entertainment. There can be in-stadium immersive experiences. We're also seeing a lot of broadcasting, live broadcasting and streaming experiences. In fact, because of how 5G and MEC use cases, we all know that now there is less buffering if we have to watch a movie or if we have to watch a most rated or highly watched video on our mobile devices. If you're watching network or streaming Netflix or any of these entertainment websites or apps, you will see that there is hardly any buffering because of how 5G and then the MEC use cases are integrated into that. Then of course 5G is extremely collaborative when it comes to advanced manufacturing sectors, because there is a whole use case of autonomous factory transport, automation and control in the assembly lines, remote assistance, robotic controls and collaborative robots, it is extremely helpful in maintenance where you need AR support and assistance, where physical human presence may be limited and restricted. Then, in life sciences and healthcare, when we're talking about this technology, remote monitoring of health data, during COVID, we all have got used to now remote consultations and diagnostics, which is a capability that has been enhanced due to 5G technology. And there has been digital hospitals with faster data transmission within departments, immersive trainings, and a lot into pharma manufacturing, automation and control that 5G enables. Automotive, I'm not going to say much, but there's a lot beyond just, what we say in one word, autonomous driving. There's a lot that goes on in infotainment, in navigation, and so on with 5G enablement. And of course, the whole talk about smart cities, which require smart infrastructure, citizen engagement in e-services, safety and security, which is enabled through HD, 5G surveillance, then emergency response to any critical situations or disaster situations, then smart utility services, and so on. So I can just go on and on, whether it is construction or whether it is even something like what we're doing now. I'm able to participate in this conference thanks to the technology and thanks to enablement with the kind of speeds and low latency that we have with 5G. It's almost real time. I don't know if there's any buffering or how good or bad the sound quality or the image quality is, but these are all examples of how we see a lot of collaboration across sectors, across industries because of the capabilities of 5G technology.
Thank you, Lakshika. I think the streaming is perfectly fine. There's no lag. So as I started with that, our life is touched upon, and you can just you heard Lakshika saying, if you want smart life, smart cities, smart home, smart office, smart healthcare, smart transportation, you are dependent on 5G. But as Mr. Murthy said, that it needs to be also one of the pillars is connecting with the Internet of Things. And that's very important aspect of when we think about a smart city or smart world around. So my next question to you, Prashant, that what is the impact of 5G and how this IoT becomes so interoperational to change the revolution which is being brought in our life?
One of the primary things, and I would sort of take all of you, or like to take all of you back by around 20-30 years. And when I say 20-30 years, many people get this image of 1970s, but 20-30 years was the late 1999. So in that decade, in fact, we saw evolution and development of the CPU, and then came the GPU, wherein certain aspects of processing of the CPU was offloaded to the GPU. And then we had the network boom as well, which sort of tied with the internet boom and the bust. But then subsequently, the I would say increase or the exponential rise of network-based communication and all the other advantages that come along with it has actually led to one thing, in my view. What that thing is that it has reduced the dependency on infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, that means the hardware that is supposed to be present in our, say, our tablet or our laptops or even in our mobile phones. The reason why I make this statement is because of what the intrinsic benefit that 5G as a communication platform, I wouldn't say it's a communication standard, but it's a communication platform because it enables communication and at the same time ensures high latency, reliability, and at the same time increased throughput and bandwidth. And what it has actually done or enabled is it has enabled large swaths of data, large volumes of data to be exchanged at a super fast speed. And that has in fact resulted into, I would say, the tremendous growth opportunities which IoT as a segment, or not only IoT, in fact any segment which relies on data to in fact grow even further. The reason why this has actually happened is now that no longer your cars or your laptops or your mobile phones need to have that super extensive hardware within themselves to do high-edge computing. The same thing can actually be offloaded onto the network itself. And the network does that. But for that, we require reliability, we require low latency, which has actually come as a result of 5G. Because of these blessings, I would say, now innovators actually have this huge, I would say, area of opportunity that they can actually explore. Now I would say the promise or the concepts of high speed, of smart cities now has become a reality because those concepts of reliability, of high throughput, high data speeds is in fact now a possibility. So all these things, as one in fact observe, that there has been a tremendous increase in applications, tremendous increase in opportunities, in fact in innovations, and that can be seen reflected by the increase in IP in this space as well. So in my view, the 5G, perhaps I would say the realization of 5G, even though 5G is right now in its early adoption stages, we have not yet seen we are only seeing the tip of the iceberg. We have not yet explored the full potential of what this communication platform can in fact provide. All the different areas of application that we actually saw, be it autonomous driving, or remote networking, remote working, even performing surgical procedures through robotics, all these possibilities are now becoming a reality because of 5G. And because of the innovation in and around the 5G space, we see that increased benefits to these connected areas of application or interconnected areas of application can in fact now be seen coming out and result in concrete, I would say, services being offered by some of the companies.
Yeah, thank you, Prashant. So this machine-to-machine learning and then interoperability, it brings us with a lot of stakeholders and the players in the market. Because one side we have patent pools where the patentees, there are not only one set of patentees, but there are several patentees holding the patents in for the same final product, if I may use the term. And therefore, there are a lot of different dynamics which is involved in the licensing regime. So my question to you, Mr. Murthy, is that apart from royalty rate, there are issues of grant-back, standstill license, cross-licensing, bulk licensing, FRAN terms, and so on and so forth. What are your advice being an in-house counsel? How do you deal with when it is agreements which you want to kind of license your patents to a third party, which may be at different levels, because now the machine is talking to machine and now there are different players and manufacturers who are dealing with different set, but as a whole, for example, a smart car. They may have different components, and the patent may be a patent pool, but the manufacturers of a connectivity set, or of a media set, or of a audio set, or maybe of a Bluetooth mobile connectivity set, they all are different manufacturers, but you need to now have a license agreement with not with one player like in past, but several. And then what are the challenges you feel that in the licensing regime, and how to overcome that?
That's a very tough question. Patent pools are becoming popular by the day, and I think, in my personal view, it's a good development. So, how do patent pools work? Patent pools have probably two main functions. One is to get all the patent holders together and have their patents committed to this pool. And there would be umpteen number of implementers who would want to implement these technologies, bring all of them to the pool and say, okay, these are 10 patent holder companies and altogether they have 1,000 patents in 4G. And here are 100 implementers, and these implementers are ready to implement this 1,000 patents or whatever. And here is the royalty per patent which you need to pay to the pool, and pool based on the contribution from each of these patent holders. It will distribute the royalty. Of course, there will always be a processing fee or whatever, right, for the patent pool. That looks like a good arrangement, which is more practical, rather than a patent holder going to each of the implementers and having different licensing agreements with each of them. And also, when it comes to FRAND, there is a FRAND angle to this. FRAND stands for fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory licensing practices. So, if I am part of a standard settings organization, I have to make a promise to the standard settings organization that if my patent or patent application becomes part of the standard, if it is accepted as a standard, then I will license my patent on FRAND terms. What is fairness, what is reasonableness, and what is non-discriminatory is left to the courts to interpret. It is done on a case-to-case basis. There is no standard definition of FRAND. And one more thing that happens, or one more challenge that comes with standard settings organizations would be these 10 companies come together to provide their solution to meet some standards, right? Standard requirements. When they come together, these 10 companies might be competitors with each other. They cannot sit across the table, or they cannot sit around the table and decide what should be the royalty fee, because you are transgressing into anti-competitive practice. Right? Price fixing is a competition law issue throughout the world. So, FRAND cannot be defined by a standard settings organization. And when it is not defined by a standard settings organization, rightfully so, it has to be interpreted by the courts, and meaning has to be given by the courts if at all there is a litigation on a case-to-case basis. So it becomes more complicated. I don't know what, as a licensor, I don't know what needs to be done. As a licensee, I don't know what needs to be done in clear terms. And this has been an ongoing, hotly debated topic throughout the world. And even courts, based on the facts of the case, they arrive at different conclusions in different cases. That tells you the complexity of the matter itself. So, licensing is a very complex, especially when it comes to standard settings organizations. Licensing is a very complex thing. And also, if I am a patent holder and if I license it to 3 different implementers, the terms that I get into with implementer A and implementer B and implementer C might be different, right? Might be different to an extent that it is not discriminate, and there's also this confidentiality clause, non-disclosure agreements with each of them. I cannot go and talk about it, and neither the implementers can talk about it. So that It's such a complex, system. Of course, it is good for lawyers, but it's a complex system, right? So.
I totally agree it is good for lawyers, and I totally agree that FRAND is a very complicated issue. But as you said rightly, that you can have different terms with player A, player B, player C, and it's totally confidential. Now, my next question is to Lakshika. That do you believe that market dynamics play a significant role in deciding the licensing term and the royalty rate? And how does it, what influences to have a different license fee? Though the technology is the same, do you think it's a benchmarking or the contribution of the technology or the extent of use of a player plays a role, or is there any other significance parameter?
Thanks, Mamta. Okay, so there are two aspects to this question. One, of course, is already answered partially by Murthy, I would say, here because he talked of France. So when we talk of any kind of licensing, and especially when you're talking in the in context of 5G, there will be, of course, one that relates to SEPs and therefore FRAND licensing terms and so on. And then there will be something which is beyond that, which is non-SEP driven or for other patents which may not be standards. And licensing for that will work out very differently. Now, it is well known that 5G or any technology for that reason is never sort of like licensed in isolation, but it is coupled or bundled with a lot of other things when it is licensed. And therefore, what goes into the licensing package is not just the SEPs, and then it's not only the FRANDs that need to be in question, and therefore I'm going to steer away from that a little bit. And in short, if I can answer, yes, the market dynamics definitely influence the negotiations of licensing agreements, which are a lot of times governed by the territory that you operate in, the use case that you're talking of. So even if it is the same technology or the same software, if you're licensing to an industry, it would be different when you license, let's take the example of 5G, which is the discussion here. It wouldn't be the same if you're plugging it into auto industry vis-a-vis when you're plugging it into a CSP for providing services to telecoms users versus if you're plugging it for pharma life science use case. And therefore, this is just an example, but there are other factors. Territories make a difference, whether you're licensing in, let's say, Asia Pacific region, you're licensing in Europe, or you're licensing in North America, where the plugins for what you're licensing will vary. If you're licensing where the infrastructure is not yet equipped to support what you're licensing, which is 5G over here, then you'll probably need to package it with something which creates an enabler for systems to be able to fully utilize that technology. And therefore, all of these factors then couple to create a licensing package. So the rights granted, the technology, what you couple it with, the liabilities, the warranties, everything actually will then change. And hence, a short answer again to what you asked me will be yes. There's a huge role that the market dynamics in terms of the use case, in terms of the industries you're plugging the technology into, in terms of the territories you're licensing it into, play a huge part in all of that.
Thank you, Lakshika. So, what I understand is that yes, there are market dynamics and it will vary from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. My question to you, Mr. Murthy, is that confidentiality in terms of the technical aspect is understandable. If you see from the implementer's point of view, but transparency in terms of how the FRAND term is calculated and why it is different from A to B, why that is confidential, what is your take from the innovator's point of view, that why it is kept so confidential that the terms which has been set up by party with A is not set up by party B, because in India, when we have a small scale industries and the upcoming industries, and this 5G is going to be, there's many small players who would like to kind of participate in the process and benefit of it. How do they learn that what is there they have to give, because they are totally at loss, because they don't have so much of paying capacity, but at the same time they want to be kind of part of that process. So what will be your comment on that?
Okay. You're asking all the tough questions to me. But I would take a step back and talk about this. So, one of the research papers talked about this. Let us say I am an implementer. I don't have any patents at all. Okay? I have 0 patents. And he is a patent holder. He has 100 patents to offer. When we sit across the table, what do you think would happen? Do I have any negotiating capability at all? My power of negotiation is very, very weak, right? Because he has 100 patents, and I'm trying to get a license for these 100 patents, and I'm holding 0 patents. But think about another situation. He has 100 patents, and I have 50 patents. Or let us say 30 patents. The way I negotiate when I hold 30 patents, which could be important for him, is a different ballgame altogether. And what I am alluding to is, I am an Indian company, I don't have enough resources, so I did not get a patent, is not an excuse at all. If you have aspirations of playing at a global level, you need to have focus on patents, get patents, become powerful at the negotiating table, right? I think in the long term, in mid-long term, that is the solution. You really need to focus on your patent strategy, irrespective of the size of your company, irrespective of what your budgets are. You need to factor this as cost of doing business. It is not just paying out the royalty today and tomorrow and for next 5 years. At some point in time, you need to be strong at negotiating. That's how the game is played. So I'm sorry, but you need to have a patent strategy in place. You need to have IP strategy in place. You just cannot continue saying that I'm a small company. I am a very poor Indian company. That is not acceptable at all. I am not talking as an employee of a multinational company. I am talking as a patriot and as a true Indian.
Now, that's an ideal situation that even the small and mid-size firms should start focusing on innovation. I can't agree more. That's an ideal situation. My question to you, Prashant, is how can startup and smaller enterprises...
Can I interrupt and just let you know that I think in a minute I'll be joining back again because this link expires and then I need to join another link. So I'm just letting you know so that you don't feel the disruption.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, see you back. So Prashant, how can startup and smaller enterprises navigate the challenges of entering in the 5G technology space and negotiating fair royalty? Because the situation, as Mr. Murthy has rightly said, that if you have no negotiation capacity, how do you enter into the market? What do you do? What are you supposed to do? And what will you advise as a counsel if you have to advise these small scale industries in the mid-size industry?
So again, borrowing from Dr. Murthy's answer, that it is a very complicated exercise in terms of how to advise, particularly for startups wherein the leverage or the position from which the startups are actually coming is at I would say -10 rather than square zero or step zero when they start up with. So there is minimal things that they can actually do. But the good thing is that the negotiation need not only be commanded from the position of a patent holder in terms of number of patents, but also in terms of how they can, in fact, convince the business benefit that can be passed on to the patent holder as well. Like for example, I'll just spell out 2 instances wherein there has been, or there is a situation, or even right now, we are at stages wherein 5G is in stages of early adoption. There are definitely a lot of implementation challenges. There are a lot of business challenges which would have to be resolved before the market or before the product actually sees the light of day in the market. And definitely the value proposition of it does not or cannot be realized immediately. It happens over a period of time. So when I say that how can startups perhaps, obviously claiming or making a sorry or cutting a sorry figure that you are a poor company or a startup or a small startup would not be the case. Perhaps relying on certain innovative mechanisms which would enable you to get the license and obtain the value from the patent holder may have to be explored. Like for example, the example that I referred to, where there is a situation where there is an early adoption of technology, there are certain challenges, and perhaps the value proposition will become a reality for the startup only after 5 or 6 years. Perhaps what can be explored, and again, I'm just to give you a very hypothetical example, a variable licensing rate can in fact be explored, wherein initially upfront, perhaps a lower royalty rate is something which can be decided between the patent holder and the startup. And as the business progresses, as the business grows, then obviously a higher or a more something which is truer to the value of the technology or the innovation that is being passed on from the innovator to the startup can in fact be provided. In the same sort of instances, whenever we have a startup which is not in its early stages of adoption and they are trying to provide a business proposition, wherein the technology space is quite well developed, let's take only throughput or in the speed. In such cases, obviously, then they would also have to position their service offering in a way which sort of does not impact the weight of the licensing fee that they are trying to at least obtain, and at the same time does not, also helps them get that technology or get that technology bite from the patent holder. It is also a misconception because largely this question assumes that patent holders are anarchists, that they are tyrants. No, they are not. In fact, the entire basis of patents right now is in the spirit of collaboration. Everybody is open to license. In fact, most of the patent disputes that you actually see is because the patent holder provides for a license or is at least open for a license, but the infringer is not open to getting or entering into the license agreement. So it's a mixed question. There is no definite answer. We have to be innovative, taking into account how business also functions, and not purely focus on patent as the sole basis for determining the extent of the royalty rates that we quote.
Yeah, thank you, Prashant. I think, yes, I have in my career seen that the flat fee and upfront fee has been considered by the innovators, and I absolutely agree that unless there is an innovation, we can't think of smart city and smart place. The very much enjoyment which we are having of this entire technology is somebody has invested in R&D, somebody has taken the pain to bring us to a par at the global level, and we need to pay the price for that. So I totally agree with you. Yes, Mr. Murthy, last comment from you. Thank you.
Last comment. Most of the times we say, IP is not native to us. We don't know much about IP. IP is an alien concept. All those things are untrue, right? In fact, without sounding arrogant, India has been at the forefront of IP protection, especially in copyrights, right? Purandara Dasara Kirtanas. Authorship is at the heart of copyrights, right? From time immemorial, we would say Purandara Dasara Kirtanas. So, identifying the author, giving due respect to the author, acknowledgement to the author is known to us. IP is not new to us, right? The shape and size might be different, the color might be different, but concept is not new to us. Let us get that right. From there, things will start getting right.
Thank you very much.